All right. Okay. Uh, yeah. So, yesterday I was playing this game. It's a pretty nice game by my numbers. Uh, and yesterday I was playing the first case out of 4, I believe. Uh, and today I'm gonna be playing the second case, I think. Now I had played the first case before, streaming it, so I knew what that was about. But that's as far as I got. So what I'm gonna be doing today is completely new to me. I have no idea what this is. So yeah, I mean, let's just go, I think. Okay. Let's see. Okay. What's that? Horror show? Oh, it's my mom. Okay. A war sermon. Cool. Alright. Okay, let's see. Always good to start things with a puzzle. Up. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. It has to be a 1, I think. This is nothing, so that's a 1. It's nothing, that is... Oh, that has to be part 4 at least. That's nothing there. That's 5, that's 5, that's nothing, that's nothing. That's a 1, so that's a 4, that's done. So that's the 4, that's the 1. And that's complete, that has to be there. This? Yes, it is. Cool. What's this? What's this? Oh, it's a locket. Oh, okay. Oh, wow. Dad. Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's fun. I don't think so. Oh, of course, of course. Yeah, let's see what's going on. Starshine Awards. Of course, yeah. Please, take Stanford. Nine days. Okay. Now, the question I had is, do we keep the things from last case? I don't think we would. Yeah. Alright, that makes sense. Okay, yeah. So then we just go, I think. We just go with theater. Alright. I like that. Alright. Okay. Thanks. Alright, dude. Shut up. Yeah. Okay, whatever. Cool. Let's go. Okay, let's do 12. That's this. That's 3. That's 5. 1, 1, 1, 3, 1, 1. Okay, this has to be part of the 7. That's if this is 1, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so that is part of the 5. That's a 1 and a 1. Okay, that's part of the 6. That's 1, 3. This has to be 4. So that's 1 and 1. And yeah, this part of the 12, so it goes like that. That's a 1 and that's a 4. That's 1, 1. And that is part of the 5. So all these are done. So 3 goes here. That's 2. That's a 6 and that's a 1. Should have seen it. It's a 9, so that's a 6. That's a 4. 1, 1, 1. And the 4 goes here. That is a 2 and a 1 and a 1. That's a 2 and a 3 and a 2 and a 1. Okay, that's a 2 and a 4. That's good. Oh, that's a 4, of course. That's 1. There, 1. That's a 12 goes here. Like that. That's a 2. That's a 1. I think. No, it's got to here. This is 6. That's 1 and 1 and a 1, 1. That is complete. That is has to be the 4 and the 3. Just like that. There we go. It's a flyer. Alright. 21st. Oh no, Star China works. Alright. Captain Cover. Alright. Okay. Hello! Oh, she went backstage. There's nothing to find here. Go on. Okay. Let's go backstage. Mama. Okay, here we go. Can't believe I can't use the keys to know this. Okay, let's see if we can find anything. There's gonna be something, right? Okay, so there's something there. I want to know if there's something anywhere else, though. Doesn't seem like that's the case, so... yeah. The ladder, I think. Yeah, okay. What do we have here? Okay, let's see. 3, 1, 2, 5, 1, 2, 3. 4, 1, 2, 4, okay. That's 1, that's nothing. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, yep. 3, 1, 1, 4. So 5, 4 goes there, so that's 2, 1, 1, that's 1, 3 goes there. 4, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2. Okay. That's 1, so 4 goes there. That's nothing. That's a 4, that's a 3. That's a 2. 4 and 4, that's a 1. That's a 2. So I guess, there's a 2 somewhere here. So there's nothing here. And what else? 3, 1, 2, 3. There we go. That's the 3. So that was complete. That's 2. So those 2 not be there. There, that's complete. So there's nothing there. That's a 2. So that's a 2 and a 2 in here. So 1. That's a 4. That's complete. So that's a 3. And these 4, and we're done. It is bow tie. It is. Bow ties are cool. Yeah. Hello. Okay. I don't know who you are. What flowers? Who are you? What flowers? Oh, what a peach. What a guy. Yep. Stressed. He doesn't look stressed. So is he the one who dies? Which pretty rude. Wow. Rat. Yep. It's good style. It's good grace. It's got a funny face. Alright. Do I need to show or something? Or can I just go back? Whoa! Okay. Let's go! Okay. Alright. What a jump. Bloody hell. You hate me, you really hate me. I don't know what's going on. We oh, where do we start? Hmm. Okay. Okay, okay. Alright. That is 4, that's a 5, that's a 1 and a 1. Okay. Pretty cool. Oh. Please notice easy, I don't think. Oh, never mind. Okay, okay. That's a 1, that's a 4, that's a 1 and a 1 and a 1 and a 1, that's a 5. Oops, that's for the ones, that's for the 3. It has to be a 1. Is any of these could be, except this one can't be anything, so it has to be that, that could be a 2, so that has to be a 4. That's a 1, that's a 2, that's nothing, that's a 3, that's part of the 4, so it can't go lower, so it's got to be that, that, 4 is complete. This is a 2, this is a 2, this is a 2, this is a nothing, so that's the 5, that's a 5, and there's a 2 somewhere here. Okay, it is a... what's that? Oh. Oh. Okay, that's the same joke I just made. Oh, alright. Oh, that's alright. Yep. Alright, man. Okay. Oh, there it is. Okay. Is he allergic? Or something? Okay. There we go. He's dying. Alright, whatever. Oh, he might be. Did he have all it? Yeah. Come on, shut up. Oh. She found the body. There we go. Cool. Alright. Yeah, so what happened? What do we think happened? I think he was poisoned with the flowers. so far. Alright, please shut up. Okay. Oh dear, Wuthering has suffered with muscle. Let's go. Yeah, let's go. Oh, okay. Yeah, let's go to the... There he is! Yeah, so... Oh, he might have been strangled, actually. Um... Why are you here? Alright. Sure. Let's see what we can find. Break a leg. Okay, let's see. There's something there. There's something there. Yeah, let's see. What's that? Ooh, okay. 15. That's a 4, that's a 3, that's a 1. That's a 1 or 1. That's the 9, so that's the thing. That's 2, and that's 4, 4, and 5, and a 4, and a 7. That's a 1. That has to be 3. That 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. That's the 2. 4 can't be this. That's not a 4. That's not a 6. That's a 3. That's there we go. What else? What else? What else? Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's a 6. That's not a 4. 3, 4, 5, 6. That's a 1. That's a 1. That's not a 4. That's the 1. That's a 4. That's a 3. So that's a 2. That's not that. That's a 4. That's a 3. That's nothing. So that's a 3. So that's a 2. That's a 2. That is another 2. And a 3. So that's complete. That's a 6. That is a 1. And a 6. A 4. And nothing. So a 4 here. That's a 1. So that's a 3. That is a 4. 5 and a 1, 4, up, 2, 1. Yeah, that is nothing, and that is nothing. Oh, 4, right? And the 1. It's like this and this. Okay. What's this? Bottle. Oh, maybe he was drinking. Let's go. Okay. I don't know. Maybe... Okay. There's gotta be something else to find, right? Well, that's a That's a full suitcase, I think. Okay, let's see. What can we find on the body? That's a 1, that's an 8, that's not a 3. Whoops. Oh, actually, that was correct. That, this is 4, so that is a 1, so that is a 2, plus 8, that is a 1. This is a 3, so this is a 5, that's 4. It can't be there. Not that. That's a 2, so that's a 3. So that's a 2. So that has to be the 2 and not the 1. This has to be part of the 2 as well, but that's the 1, so that's the thing. That's 2. Okay. That's nothing. So that's a 1 and a 2 and a 1. There's a part of the 2, so that has to be one of the 1s. That's complete, so that's the 1, so this is nothing. What did I do? Okay. Okay, so that's complete, so that's a 2, so that's nothing, so that's a 5, so that's complete, so that's a 1 and 2, and this is the right one. It's a handprint, okay. Oh yeah, I had to get the handprints. Alright, he's... Yep. He was strangled. Of course he was moided. Who are you? Shut up. Why didn't you jump? Anyway. Hello! I didn't. What are you doing here? Get lost. Okay, what could we find here? Well, we'll see, right? We'll see what we see once we find it, I guess. Okay, is that it? I think that's it. Alright. Is it the camera? 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 5, 1, 2, 3, that's a 1. That's a 1 on a 2 on a 1, 3, 5. Okay. Okay, 3, there we go, that's 4, there we go. Up. It's 2 on a 1, 2, 4, that's a 4. That's a 3, so that's done, that's a 2, that's a 4, that's nothing, that's a 3, that is complete, that is a 4, that's one of the 3. That's done, that's a 3, that's a 5 and a 5 and a 4, so that's the 4, and that's one of the 2, so that's one of the 3, that's a 3, and that's a 1. That's 1, and a 3, and a 2, and that is also part of that. It's done, that is, okay, this is the 4, so that is also complete, that's a 3, that's there, so that's a 4, that's the 2, this is a 3, yes, let's go, 1, 1, let's complete that, there we go. This is complete, so we have this. It is... I don't know, a hip flask, okay. apparently there's still something to find. Yeah, okay. Okay, let's see. 1, 1, 2, oops, 2, 2, there, that's 5, 5, 5, 3, 3, 4. There we go. This is 4, so that is 1, so it has to be that. Let's see, 7, 3, 3, 1. There we go, that's 2, that's a 4, that is a 2, that is a 3, that is a 1, that is a 2, that is a 3. So this big one, that's a 4, that is a 7, okay. 2 and 3 and that is a 4. That's complete, that's a 7, that is done. That is a 2 as well, so that's part of the 4. So that is a 3 and this is a 5. That's something. This 4, that's something. That's 2, so that's complete. That is a 3. That is a 4. That is a 2. So that's a 1. The 5 is complete. 4 is complete. Okay, now with 1, 2, 1, okay. Well, this has to be something. Oh. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 2, that's 2, that's a 1, a 1, that's a 3, so that's could be something still. That's nothing, so that's a 1, 1, nothing, nothing. That's a 1, that's a 2, so that's nothing. So that's a 5. Oh, what am I doing? I got something wrong in here. Oh, okay. Okay, I think I fixed it. Okay. Okay. That is something in there. I don't know for sure. That's a 1, 2 on the 1, that's a 2. That is 2 there, so that's a 2. 1, 2, 1, nothing, 2, 1, 2. So that's nothing, that goes there, that's empty, that goes there, and there. Let's go. It is something. Oh, it's a magazine, I think. Okay. Okay. Why are you here? Can I just go somewhere else? Yeah. Ooh, let's see if we can find something here. It's much more interesting than talking to people. Yeah, let's see. Okay, let's see. Ooh. 13. Okay. Let's see. 3, 5, 3, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 3. That is 1 and 5. That is 5. That is 7. That is 1, 1, 2, 1. Okay, that is a 14. That is a 9. That's nothing. So far. Oh, that is 7 and a 7 and a 7 and a 7 and 6 and a 2 and a 1. Okay. Okay. So that's 4, that is 7, that's a 1, 1, 1, 1, 5, 3, 5. 5. Oh, this has to be something, right? 2, 3, 2, 1. 5, 6, 7, that's an 11, so that's there. This is a 9, so yeah, oh whatever. Oh, that's way too much. Yeah, fair enough. Nothing. 5, 3, 2, 1, 2, 1, 1, 6. That's 4. That's 6, that's 7, that's 1, 1, and a 4. That is a 4, that is a 2, and that is a 1, and that is clean except this one, and 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 this one. Okay. So, wallet? It's a woman. We're gonna show that to somebody. Okay. $50,000? Okay. I'm gonna have to talk to him, I guess. Oh, okay, let's see. We can talk to either of them. Let's be in order. What do you mean, one? Kind of. Damn. Really? Exactly, not get on with it. Okay. Okay, shut up. Ah, let me use the keys. Alright. Let's see. Do we have anything? I think we do this. Hmm. Yeah, I don't think there's anything here that we need to show him. Yeah. Sure, whatever. Hello. Thank you. Oh. What did I just tell her? Alright. Blackstock? Is... what the 50,000 before? That's quite expensive, I think. What can you tell me about this? Okay. actually talk to her, can't I? Yeah, I guess there's nothing from unless I can. Well, why don't you ask if he was not to drink? Okay. Oh, come on. Probably not, huh? Okay. Oop. Yeah, I guess we could ask him. Okay. What can you tell me about this? Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I guess we'll have to talk to the guy. Hello. Shut up. I don't know what to talk to you. Just. Oh. Okay. Shut up. Do you have evidence that what was the point of that? Is there anything here? Doesn't seem like it. Is there anything? Yeah, we just have to talk to people. Okay. Oh, I've seen this already. Yep. Okay. Yes. Again. Should be obvious. Yep. Oh, yeah. I know. Okay. Hello. Yep. Oh, yep. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Oh, come on. Okay, so what now? I think I tried everything. come on, why is it like that? I mean, if you're gonna have the same character in 2 different places, you should at least make it so that both times you show the same dialogue options, right? Okay, whatever. I didn't even pay attention to what he said. Yeah. Sure. What's up? What can you tell me about this wallet? It was yours. A big check. Ah, alright. Okay. Yeah, we sort of figured that out. Yep. Cool. Oh. Why? Why is it like that? Against him? The hit loss, I think it is. Yes. Yes. That's better. Okay. I didn't even be showing the wallet. It would have been fun if they had asked me to show evidence at least, you know, rather than just choose from dialogue options. I think it would have been more fun to choose from the evidence I have, because I have the evidence, right? I have the flask and I have the wallet. Okay. What did he say? I don't remember. Why is there no option to show like the history of the dialogue? Can we at least keep looking for more evidence? There's nothing more to do. We're done. Okay, let's see. So we're gonna keep looking for things, right? Oh, you're here. Bro, pain in my ass. Oh, he's learned to lie. Snappy one-liner. Yep. Okay. Let's see. There's gotta be something to find, right? But there's nothing on the handle. There's actually nothing on the handle. Okay. Well, let's see. There's nothing around the area. Okay, let's just do a thorough scan. Okay, so there's that bag. Is there anything else? There's the mirror. Okay. Okay, so there's the bag and the mirror. Okay, yeah, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 5, that's a 4, that's a 4, that is 1, that's a 3, that's a 5, okay, yeah. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay, so that's a complete row, right there. Okay, cool, that's a 2, and that's a 2, that's a 1, and that's also a 1, so that's a 4, 4, that's the 3 complete. That is part of the 3 as well, so that's a 2, and that's a 3 complete. That is also 1, I'm pretty sure, and that's a 2 and a 2. Let's go. That's a 2, and that's a 5. That's 1, I'm pretty sure, so that's a 4. That's also a 4. That's a 2, and that's a 3, that's a 2 and a 2. Okay, 4. That's a 4, that's a 1. That's a 2, and that's a 4. That's a 2, and a 6. That's nothing. That's a 3, 3. Okay. That's a 2, and that's a 3. That's a 2, and that's a 3. That's a 3 as well. That's nothing. That is 2 and a 3. Okay, so that's good. That's there. So let's go. 5, 3. That's a 1. That's nothing. That's the 3 complete. That is the 3 complete as well. That's the 3 up there. That's 3. That's nothing. That's a 3. That's a nothing. That's a 3. That's nothing. That's 1 of 2. That's done. That's 1 of the 5. That's 2. That's a 2. That's the 3. That's a 1. That's a 5. That's a 1. That's a 2. That's nothing there. That's a 1. We have found a PDA. Okay. Cables here. Okay. Yeah. There was something else. And the mirror. One, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 1. Oh, that's a complete. Oh, okay. Okay, there we go. That's that. That's a 1. That's probably a 3. That's a 1. 2. That's a 1. What else? What else? Well, that's not a 5. And that's a 1. And what else? Yeah, something else here. 2, 1, 2, 3. That's a 2. That's a 1. And that's a 1. And that's a 1. That's the, there we go. There we go. That's the 2. That is a 1 as well. That's 2. That's 3. That's the 3. That's a 1 and a 1. That is also a 1. That has to be nothing. And so that has to be a 2 in part of the 5. And also that has to be a 1, and that has to be a 1, and that has to be nothing. That has to be nothing, and that has to be the 2, and that has to be the 1, and that has to be nothing. Yeah, that also has to be a 1, and that's a 5. That has to be nothing, so that has to be a 1, that's a 2. That's nothing. Okay, that's a 3. Okay, what else? That's a 1 and a 1. That has to be a 2, so that's nothing, and that's nothing. This has to be a 1, because this has to be a 2, and this has to be a 1, it's nothing. These are nothing. There we go, there we go, that's... And there we go! It is... something. What's this? Medallion, okay. Medallion. Oh, I see. 40 years. Yeah, I mean, we were pretty sure before that you know, I'm pretty sure the alcohol was his, right? Like, we knew that from before, I'm pretty sure. Okay. I don't think that makes him the killer. Oh, you knew my dad, didn't you? Okay. Yeah, I don't know if I suspect Bobby just... No, just like, yeah, he's very suspicious, but I don't know. I don't know. he's clearly looking for something. Oh, so now you have the same dialogue as before, right? Okay, so what do you have to say about is it his? It's gotta be his, right? You wouldn't have given this to Bobby. Someone else. It has to be someone who's 40 or older. Yeah, I mean, what can you tell me about this? Yeah, this has nothing new. What about this? Yeah, nothing new. I don't know, so... Yeah, you wouldn't. Oh, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Okay, so this is completely inconsequential. Okay, I guess. Yeah, let's go back. So what do we do now? Here. Why here? Okay. Pork on the floor. 1, 2, 3, 2 and 2. Okay. That's a way to start. That is a 1, 2, 3, 4. That is 1, 2, 3, 4. There, 1, 2, 3. Okay, 3. Yes, this has to be the 3. So 2. That's a 2. That's a 4. That is nothing. So that's a 1. That's a 3. That's a 2. That's a 2. This has to be the 2 and the 1 and the 2 and the 1. This has to be the 2 there. These 3 is complete, so this one is the 4, this 2 and this 1 and this 1, and this 2 and this is done. This is a 2, so this is a 4, this is a 1 and this is a 2, and so that's a 3 right there, that's a 2, that's a 2. So this is complete, and that's a 1, that's a 2, that's 1, 1, 2. So, okay, 3, 1. I'll be saying numbers again. Okay, there we go. Okay, that's a 2. That's a 1. Okay, we have found something. Handkerchief. Okay. Candy Crush. Oh, this is what someone would have used to wipe the door handle, right? Don't DS. Yeah, this is what they would have used to wipe the thing. Okay, so that's all we have to find in here. That means we have to go somewhere else, right? Hello, Mr. Cross. Oh, I didn't talk to him. I guess I forgot. Alright, let's go. Fair. Understandable. Everybody here is so worried about reputation. Okay. Perfect. Okay. I thought we were going to investigate that. I guess we'll get to that at some point. Who's the race? What can you tell me about this handkerchief? Okay. 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 That's interesting that they have two default responses for two different things. Okay, so absolutely nothing. What? Not even about Migaki? Okay, whatever. So, what do we do then? What can you tell me about this? Okay, so this is what you were looking for. I know it's all yours. What are we doing? Don't do this. Don't do this, please. You think it's overpriced. I don't know what to think just yet. Yeah, I mean, that, yeah. That's fair, that's fair. Just make sure you got the right guy this time, please. What do you mean? Oh right, so he didn't kill him. He did die by poison. And they didn't have a struggle. We didn't have a struggle, right? So he strangled him, I guess. Then he was already dying because he was poisoned, right? Like that's why he was feeling so bad before. While he was getting his reward, I guess. Is this gonna be a recurring thing? Like, we make an accusation and then he turns out to be wrong? And this guy just believes it for some reason? Yeah. Now, he did attack the guy, so... Okay, there is still a crime, I think. Alright. It is an autopsy report. It shows that he was poisoned, I think. It's gotta, right? That's 7, that is a 3, that is a 3, that is a 4, that is complete, that is a 2, that is a 3, that is a 2, that is a 2, that is a 3. Okay. Oops! That was going to be the other key. Okay. That is a 2 and a 2. Oh, that's a 4, okay. That is complete, that is a 7. That is a 6, that is a 4, that's a 1, and that's a 3, and that is a 5, so that's nothing, and that is nothing as well. That has to be a 1. There we go, that's 2. I need oh, that's a 2, so that's a 1, so that's nothing. So that's a 2, so that's complete. That is a 3. That is a 2. That is complete. That is another 2. That is a 1 and a 1, and 1 and 5. And the 4, and the 2, and we're done. It is just 2. It is a blurred sample. Okay. Good test. Yeah. Okay, so this is what we learned. It was a quiz, right? Oh, come on. There we go. Wow. Who would have thunk? Yeah, I don't know. Hehehehe. I guess, yeah. Here. Well, not innocent. Okay. I don't know, that could be fun. Oh, we're actually gonna do that. Okay, that's fun. That's actually fun. 2, 3. Uh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 6, 5, 4, 3, 6, 2, 7, 1. Okay. Cool. Ooh, I love it. That's complete. That's nothing. That is really something. 1, 2, 3. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Okay. 2, 3. This has to be the 4. So that's that. Okay. This is also complete. These points. Okay. What now? Oh, there's 7 there. So 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's a 1, that's a 3. Okay. That is complete as well. That's the 4, that completes the 7. That closes that. This is also done. This is also done. The 2 can't be there. This is also the 3. This can't be the 3 or the 1, so it has to be nothing. No, actually. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1. Oops. There we go. 3, 4. That's 4 and a 5. That's a 1, that's a 4. Okay. That's nothing. That's not a 2, so that's not a 5. So that's nothing. That is complete. 5. 1, 2, 3, beep, 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 11. It's an envelope, I think. It's an envelope of something. Would that be the one? Could be. Seems very likely to. That is the one. Yeah, it's gotta be. Is it? Okay. Getting closer. We're getting closer. Wait. It's Becky's. Wouldn't it? Or the other lady, I don't know her name. Kathleen? Was it? Something like that. Sorry, Mom. Damn right. Yeah, I don't think it's saying that. Yeah, that's fair. Ooh, alright. They're gonna say later that Cross was his father, aren't they? Okay, that'll be neat, I think. I have nothing to show you. Bye. Oh my god. Okay. Oh, come on. Oh, that's fair. Okay, so he feels like he has taken care of us. That's sweet. How do you know it was at the... Yeah. Okay, so this is what... Yep, okay, yep. Let's go. 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8? Is that right? 1, 2, 4. Yes, it is. Okay. 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 5. 5. Oops, oops. There you go. 2, that's a 3, that's a 9. Hello? Okay. Let's use 7. Okay. That's out of 4, that's a 1, that's a 6, and a 7. That's a 3, ooh, an 8. 1, 2, 4, 5, 4, 3, okay. 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, okay. Oops, okay, 1, 8, 2, 4, that is nothing, that is a 3, that is 1, that can't be the 3, so it's gonna be 1, so that's nothing, so that's the 3, and that is the 9, and that is a, let's go back here, that is the 2, and the 1, and the 1, so that's the 3, and that's the 1, and the 2, that is a 4, that is a 1, that is a 4, that is a 1, and 1, and the 2, that is a 2 there, that is a, as far as we can go, I think. There's nothing. That's a 3. That's nothing. That's a 2. That's nothing. That's a 4. That's a 2. Okay. Okay, I think that's as far as we can go there. That's a 2 and a 3. That is a 5. That is a 7. That is a 4. That is a 2. 3. That is a 2. 4. That is okay. That is nothing. That is a 2 and a 4. And a 4. Okay. 4. 3 and 2. That's down. That's 2. That is nothing. So that's the 4. That is there. That's a 2. And that's a 2. That's a 5. That's a 4. Okay. That's a 5. That's a 4. That's a 3. And a 3. And a 2. Okay. And a 3. Okay. That's 5. That's complete. That is nothing. That is a 1 and a 1. That is a 3. That is a 2. That is a 5. Nothing. That's a 2. That's nothing. That is a... Okay. That's the other half of the picture. It's gonna be Detective Cross. Joshua. Okay, yes sir. No, that's fair, that's fair. He died. Well said, well said. Again? Alright. Hey mama, bye mama. There you are. There you go. Oh, that's right. Yeah, sure. Anyways, what can you tell me about this uncle? Yes, it is yours, of course. Oh. Is there any point in us talking anymore? I mean, what? I guess. Okay. Yeah, okay, I thought it was gonna be more helpful. Whatever. Ooh. Let's just... Yeah, that doesn't mean anything. Okay. Can I find anything else? I don't think... Ooh. Yeah, let's try that. Oh, a big puzzle. Let's go. One. 3. 1 and 3 and 3. Oh, that's a 15. I didn't even see it. 1 and 4. That's 2. That is a 1. That is a 3. That's a 1. So that's a 3. And that is nothing. That's a 3. That's a 7. Let's go. 5. 3. That is a 1 and a 1 and a 1 and a 1 and 3. So that's the 1 and the 3. That's there. Let's go. That's a 3. That's an 11. That's that way. That's a 4. That's another 15. Okay. Oop. That's a 1. This is a 2. So that's has to be a 1. That's a 1. That's also. That's a 3. That's a 2. That's a 4. That's a 4. That's a 2. That is nothing. That's a 2. That is a 6. That is a 5. That's a 1 and a 2. And that is a 3. That goes to the right. That's a 2, that's a 4, that's complete, that's a 5, that is a 1 and a 1, that is a... That's nothing, that's a 4, that's complete. That is... not useful. That's a 3. Okay, that's complete as well. Oops. That's a 2, another 2, that's a 1, 1, that's another 1. That's 2, that is a 5. That's a 3. That is done as well. That's a 3, that's a 1, that is a 4. That is a 4 as well. Okay, that's the other one, so that's a 2, that's a 1. That's good. That is a 4. That's 2, there we go. 4, 3, 1. 2, 1. That's nothing. That's a 2, that's a 2 as well. That's nothing, that's a 1 and a 1. That is complete. That is complete. That's a 1. That's complete. That's a 2. What have we found? A briefcase with something inside. Silent. Desist. Oh, cease and desist. Come on. Alex Costa. I don't think that's an name we've heard before. There was still something else, right? We haven't booked the body. Okay, where... We have also found... What have we found? What are you doing? 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. 1, let's say 4, 4, right? 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's there we go. 3 goes there. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that's about it. 6. 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay. Let's put 4, 1, 2, and 1, 2. Oh, okay. It's full color. Okay. What else? What else? That's nothing. That's nothing. That's nothing. So that's nothing. That's nothing as well. Oh, right, of course. Whoops. Those are nothing. I don't know if that's too helpful. Yeah, I don't know. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, that's something. That's a 5. That's 2 and a 3. This has to be the 5, alright. Means this has to be the 3. That's a 2. That could still be the other 2, so let's not jump to conclusions. That could be it. So that's a 3, that's a 3, that's nothing, that's a 1. That has to be a 3, so that's a 4 and a 4. That was a mistake, that's a 2, that could be the 3. That's a 1 and a 1, okay. That's the 4, that's the 2. That's a 1 and a 1. So that's the 3, 3, nothing. That's a, oops, that's the 3 and a 2 and a 1. That's nothing, that's a 2. That's a 2. That's nothing. That's nothing. That's 4, that's a 2. That's a 2. That's a 2 as well, that's a 3. I say 1, I say 3. I say 2 in there. That is a 5, that is that, that is that. That, and this, and what am I missing? Oh, there we go. What's this? Oh, okay. We're getting closer. It is a PA dog. We're gonna do some hacking. Okay. Yay. Okay. 5. And 4. True. Okay. There's 1 and 3. That. Oh, it's 4 this time. Okay. 4, that is a 2. It's a 1 and 1, that is a 2, that is a 3. And we're missing that. Cool. Spreadsheet? I guess. Yeah. Okay, this actor, Graham Hall. Right. Okay. Okay. Oh, so this man... Ryan. There we go. Okay. Would he be the one who did it? I don't know. Seems likely, but I'm not sure just yet. Okay, we don't need to talk about that, I guess. Cool. Hello. Okay. Not a surprise. Oh. Maybe, suppose there's a fake name. If there's three options, I guess it would be Ryan. I mean, that's the most likely thing. Maybe? Could be Bobby? If his mom's name was Alexandra, then maybe? I don't think it's Becky. It doesn't make sense for it to be Becky, right? Yeah, I don't really know. It doesn't really matter, right? If I get it wrong, she's gonna ask me again. Yeah, I don't know. It would be fun if there were like actual consequences for getting it wrong, you know. Um. Oh. Hello. Oh, come on. Okay. Giving us the prompt to investigate. Uh, yeah, what are we doing? Did we just find? I wonder, I wonder. nothing, that is nothing, that is... That's a 2, that's a 1. That's a 1, that's a 2, that's nothing, that's a 1, that is nothing, that's a 3, that is a 1, that's a 2, there we go, that is... Oh, that is complete, so the 2 has to go here. That's the 2, and that's the 1, that's the 2, that's the 2, and that's completed, that's a 2, that's a 7, that's a 3, that is a 2, that's a 2, and that is a 3. Makeup, oh, okay. Keys? That's convenient. So that's where the poison was. How are you feeling? Oh yeah. So one thing. This is huge. Okay, wow, right. Yeah, I like this. Yeah, alright, yep. Probably give it a splash, huh? Warm. Fire. We're in the bathroom, there's water everywhere. Come on. Okay. No. 1, 3, 5, that's 2. That's a 3, and that's not 3. Yep, that's a 4 and a 5. That is that. What else? should be doing this faster. 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That's a 5, that's a 6, that's a 1, that's a 2, and that's a 3, that's a 4, that is a 6, that's a 3, that's a 3 as well, that's a 5. Actually, I don't know about that just yet, so I'm not going to do that. That can't be anything, so that has to be the 3, that's nothing, nothing. That can be the 2, okay, so it was correct, to be sure. It's 1, and that is a 2, that is a 2, I can't do anything with that. Okay, as for the 6, that far, that is a 6, that is a 2, and a 3. That is not correct. How come? That doesn't make much sense. Right, that's a 6, right, that's a 2. That is a 3. How? Okay, oh, because of course I'm being an idiot. Okay, there we go. Okay, that is a 6, that is a 1, 1, 3, 1, okay. 1, 4, 1, 4, yeah, that's a 3, that is a 1 or a 2. That is also, that's a 1, yep. 3, that is a 4, that is complete as well. That is a 2, that is a 4, so it can't be any of those. So it can't be that or that. That is also complete, so that is nothing. That is, has to be a 3, right? Yeah. Can't be anything else. Okay, that's a 2 on the 1. That is a 6, that is something. That is that, that is that, that's a 3. That's a 2. Oops, that's a 2 as well. There we go, that's that, that's that, that's that, that's a 1. That is nothing, that is nothing. That is nothing in here, so there we go, like that. That is nothing, so that's a 6, that's a 1, that's a 1 as well. That's a 2, that is a 2 out of a 3, that is a 3 right there, that is nothing, so that's a 2, that's a 3, that is a 4, that is done, that is nothing, so that's a 2, that's a 3, there we go. Fire extinguisher. Okay. We're gonna find a crowbar. Okay, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 6, that is also 6, that's a 2. A 3. That's a 5. It has to be this, alright. Yeah, there you go, there is a 4, that's nothing right there. That's 2, and this has to be a 7 and 1. Yep. Oh, and there you go, that's 5. That's nothing. That is a 1 and a 3 and a 1, 1. That's a 1 and a 4, the 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. That's a 2, that's complete. That is a 1, so that's a 3, and that's a 1, that's a 7, that is a 1 and 1. That can be part of the 8. Right? This is the 2, which means this has to be the 5 and the 1. That's nothing. That's a 2, so that's a 1, that's a 7, that's like that. That's a 2, there's nothing there. That is like that. That's that. That's that. That's a 3, so that's a 2, and that's a 3, that is a 1, that is a 6, that's a 2, that is a 4, that's nothing, nothing, that's that, that's nothing, that's a 4, that is a 4 as well, that is a 6 complete, and a 5 complete, there we go, that is a 3, that is a 1, and a 2, and a 7, 2, 2, there we go, oh, oops, 5, nothing, 4 complete, 3, that's a 2, that is also complete, that is complete. That's a 1, that's a 2. That's a 1. So that's a 3. It's a 1 and 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 a 1. Okay, I just... Oh, there we go. It was a crowbar, okay. That sounded weird. Oh, that is way too much fire. For a single fire extinguisher to work. Yeah. $2. Oh, okay. Hmm. Yeah. Let us see. Well, hello. Should I bring you up to speed with what we've been going through with this case? Okay, so this is the second case. It started like, I don't know, sometime after the first one. We were invited to an award ceremony. So we got here. Our mom is somewhere in there. There's a bunch of people that we know, right? Our ex-husband is somewhere in here. And there was the presenter was someone who was like very well, an old guy who was well known in the the TV business. Um, and it turns out that there had been some beef between him and some other people because he was being replaced by a new guy. But they're still we're going to give him an award, like as a as a like for his years in the industry. So he was up there in the podium, receiving his award, making his speech, and he wasn't feeling too well. And then he got very angry, and he just stormed off. He stormed off. Like he was very angry at what had been happening. He was like, because he had just been replaced, right? And so he stormed off. So we went to check up on him, and turns out he was dead. So we started investigating, and we started figuring out what's been going on. So the first thing we figured out was that he was strangled. So we were trying to figure out who did that. And we eventually found out that it was the guy that ended up replacing him. It's this young guy called Bobby Price, I believe. So we caught him, and they took him to the police station. And again, turned out after that, like we got the results of the forensic analysis, and it turned out the guy had been poisoned. So strangling him didn't actually kill him. So they ended up freeing the guy that they had captured. So we kept investigating, and what happened then? Yeah, so we've been making further investigations, and apparently it ended up being Bobby regardless. It still was him, the one who poisoned him. We're not really sure, but it seems like it might have been him, because he then gave Becky here, he gave him like a thing of makeup, and the thing had poison in it. So the leading theory so far is that he was trying to get rid of her, or of the evidence. We're not really sure. But that's what we know so far. The building just got burnt. It doesn't look like it because this part of the building was fine. But backstage, the guy's dressing room, all of that got burned out, so we don't have any more evidence. So we're in a bit of a pickle right now. I think that's all. I think that's what we've done so far. Am I missing anything? I don't know. I don't think so. There's a bunch of other characters, right? Any of them could actually be suspicious. Like, our ex-husband was here, right? And turns out that he had actually met the guy who died hours before. They had a bit of a discussion, or like a disagreement. Turns out that our ex-husband had paid him like $50,000 for something. Apparently it was because the guy who died was taking bribes, and our ex-husband paid him to make sure that we, at our show, didn't win the award. So that's something else that is going on. And what else? And there's this other lady who had been working with the guy for a long time, and she was the one who was giving the speech. So far there isn't really any evidence against her, but she's also here. And I think that's all. So we're gonna continue, I think. So, yeah, the thing is, we're talking with Becky right now because, yeah, he's not a nice guy, not at all. Not at all. But yeah, we were talking with Becky right now because we were asking her about the makeup that Bobby gave her. She just told us that Bobby also gave her something else. And we're trying to figure out, with this puzzle, what it was. Yep. So we'll see what it was once we finish it. Okay. Now that has to be the 2. There's no room for it to be anything else. That's a 2, that is nothing. That is the 6, so that goes up to there. That is a 2, that's the 9, right? That is up to there. 4, and the 2, and the 2, that's a 2 as well, that's a 4, and the 2, that's a 2 there, that's a 2 there, so that's the 5, that's a 2 complete, so that's nothing, that's a 4, that's a 2, that's a 2, and that's a 3, that's a 4, that's a 5, that's a 2 complete, that's a 4, that is done, that's a 4, done, that is a 6. Okay, that's a 2, that's a 1, that's a 4, oops, that's too much. There we go, that is a 3, that's a 5, that's a 1. That's a 2 in there, that's complete. It has to be the 9, right? Yep, that's the 1, complete. That's a 2 and the 2, that's complete. That's a 2 and the 2, oops, that's complete. That's another 2. Oops. There we go, that's a 2 again, that's another 2. It's a diamond? I think it's a diamond. That's a 3, that's a 5, that's a 1, that's a 3, that's a 1. That's a 1. That's a 1, that's a 5, that's a 2, that's complete. Right, that's a 3, that's a 3, that's there. That's complete again. That's a 1 and a 1. That's 2, so that's nothing. That's a 1, 1, 1. Yep, that's complete. That is 1, 1, 1. Yes, that's nothing. That's a 2, and that's a 1. Oh, it's a fan. Mélanger joli. What? Hello. Push green paper status. Supervised. Okay. Alex Costa. Okay. This name came up before. I don't quite remember where it was. I think there had been rumors being spread about the guy who died, and they were being spread by Alex Costa. Now we have the suspicion that Alex Costa is not the real name of this person, and we suspect it is actually Bobby Price, because Bobby's mother was named Alexandra. The connection there is like Alex Costa being Costa like cost, like price. That's the connection that our protagonist here made. So we suspect that Alex Costa is actually Bobby Price. Oh, there we go. Okay, why do I bother remembering things? Do we have anything else to say? I don't know. I don't think there's anything. Come on. I know it's poison. Yeah, I don't think there's anything we need to show her. Let's go somewhere else if we can. Okay. Oh, there is something to find apparently. Let's see. What's that? Oh, okay. This looks like a tough one. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, that's nothing. That's a 3. Oops. Oh, that's a 3, 2, 4. Oh, that's a complete. Oh. That's a 1. That's a 2. That is a 2. That's a 5. 1, 1. Yeah, okay. That is nothing. Okay. One, 3, 1, 1. Oh, that's another one. That's another complete column, I think. Yep, there we go. That could be anything. That could be anything again. Okay, but that has to be a 3. That's a 5. Is this also a complete one? Yes, it is. Okay. Okay. That's a 3, that's nothing. That has to be a 2 or 4. That's a 5. That is a 1, which means it has to be the 2 now. There's no room for it to be anything else. 4, that's a 5, that's a 4, that's a 1, that's a 2. Okay. That's a 2, so that's a 1, so that's a 3, so that is something. Could be either the 1 or the 2, so yeah, that's not sure. That's a 2, okay, so that's a 7, so that's a 5, 6, 7, that's a 2, so it was the 1, that's a 2, that is a 5, that's a 2, that's another 2, that's a 2, that's a 2, that's a 3, that's a 5, that's a 1 and a 3, this is 1, and this is a 1, so this is the 4, and that's the 4 as well, that's a 4, that's a 2, 2, there we go. This is a 7, that's a 2, that's complete. All of this is as well. That's a 4, that's a 2, that's a 2. So it's that. That is. That could be the 2 or the 4. That has to be the 4. Okay. Right, that's a 2. That's a 1. This has to be 1. Is that 1? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. 4. Okay. 1, 1. Yes. 2. Good. 3, 2. That is a 1. That is nothing. That is 8. Okay. That's a 1. What? That's gonna be a 1 as well, right? Teacup. This one, I don't think this is a teacup. I don't know what it is. We found it in the bathroom. I generally don't know what it could be. Towel, maybe? I don't know. Oh, that's not right. 2. Okay. Oops. That's a 2. That's a 2. That's a 1. That is a 1. That's a 2. That's a 1. That is. That's a 1. Okay, that's a 1 as well. That's nothing. Okay. Oh, this has to be something. Ooh, okay. Okay, no. Okay, so that's the 1, so that's nothing. That's a 1, that's nothing. That is something, right? That's 2. That's a 1, that's a 2. 1 and 1, that's complete. This is one of the ones, that's a 2, that is a 3. Yeah, so this is the last tile. I don't know what it is. Oh, I think it's gloves. There you go, it's gloves. Okay, okay, okay. I think this was very premeditated. There you go. They have poison. Red powder. Yeah. Cool. Women's clubs. Yeah, kind of familiar. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the lady who was giving the presentation, or like the was like in the award ceremony, who was with the guy at the podium. She was wearing black gloves. We haven't seen her in a while, but yeah, she wore black gloves. Okay. It started to look like she was the one who moited the man. There's still something else to find here. Okay, let's see. What could it be now? Ooh, that's a big one. Okay, let's see. That's 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. That is a 1, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. 3, 1, 1, 4. This one. Okay. 7. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's not very helpful. 3, 4, 5, 6. That's a complete column. Okay. Okay. We can work with this. That is a 2. That's a 2. That's a 2. That can be the 7, so it has to go here. That's a 2. That's a 3. That's a 3. That's a 1 and a 2. That's a 4. That is a 2. That is a 4, and that's a 6. That's a 2. 2 and a 2. That is a 5. That is complete. There. Yeah, that is not very helpful. That is 1 and 7, so that's that. That's a 3. That's a 2, so that's the 7 right there. And that's a 2, that makes it a 4. That's a 2, that's a 1. That could be 3 or the 1. That is a 2 and a 1, that is a 1, that is a 4, okay. This is, okay, this is also a complete row. There you go. Okay, this is a 1 and a 3. 1, 1. That's a 1. That's nothing. That is a 1. So that's a 1 and a 2. So that has to be the 2 on the 1 and the 3. Okay. That's a 3. That's a 2. Oops. That is marked already. That is a 1. That is an 8. This has to be the 2 on the 3. That's a 1. That's a 3. That's a 1. I think this is a bouquet of flowers. Okay. Yeah, so at the beginning of the ceremony, we had met the guy. Right before the ceremony, we encountered him. He was complaining that he didn't get the flowers he wanted. And then he showed up at the ceremony with flowers. I don't know if they were the flowers that he actually requested. And I was very suspicious of the flowers since the beginning. And apparently, it seems like there is something to do with flowers. If this is actually a bouquet of flowers. Now, I'm pretty sure a little scout here is going to tell us what flowers these are. And then we're going to remember, are these the flowers that he expected, or are these the flowers that he actually showed up with? Yeah. And we're very close. And there we go. Dying flowers. Yeah, these are the ones he actually showed up with. Oh, there we go. I think that was the last puzzle of the case. Okay. Oh, wait, yeah. There was poison in the flowers. Okay. Wow. I'm so clever. Yep. Okay, so our final theory, I think we're gonna accuse the lady that was with him, Kathleen something, I believe. I don't really know why she would do that. Like, of all the motives she could have, I don't know which one she had. It is very clear to me that she is the one who did it, right? Because of the gloves, and the poison, and the flowers, and the makeup. Yeah. Kathleen killed Dick. Oh. Okay, so that's Kathleen. She still has gloves on. Right? It would have been fun to see her without gloves. As a little bit of a confirmation, like, yeah, the ones that you found are hers. But alas. Oh, man. Embroidered weapon. It was flowers. Oh wait, that is right. He bought the genetics. I'm being a buffoon. It was him. Okay, I'm not gonna say anything else because I might make a fool out of myself. Okay. Yep. This would be such a prime opportunity to show the evidence we have instead of just choosing from a list of options through text. Like, we have the menu with the evidence. Why aren't we using that? Like, it would be so much funner if we could, so much more fun if we could do it that way. But yeah, it is the gloves. Oh, too obvious, yep. go. No, you didn't read her rights. You can use this statement as evidence in court. Whatever. So the case came to a close. Oh. Okay, so what's gonna happen now? That's what you read that's when you arrest them, when you read them their rights. You tell them you have the right to remain silent. Anything that you said can be used against you. You know, you have to say them to that. You have to tell them that. Okay. Now this woman here, she appeared in Scout's flashbacks. We don't really know what her deal is, and she also appeared in the theater today for some reason. Like she just showed up and then went away, didn't say anything. So something's going on, and we don't know what it is. But she's definitely involved in something with Scout. Ooh. Case closed. Wow. What a cliffhanger. Okay, so that was the second case. It was fun. It was alright. Yeah, I don't really have a lot to comment on that case. Uh, there were a few instances where we were being asked to like, we were being asked very specific questions where the answer was some sort of evidence, which we had, but instead of asking for evidence, they just showed us a list of options, a very short list of options. So I don't know. I think that could be done better. But overall, like, yeah, I mean, the case was fun. I mean, it happened again. We found one culprit, and then we accused them, and then it turned out to be wrong. So, I mean, repeating the same thing again is not that fun. But yeah, up until the very end, it wasn't all that sure who had done it. So that was cool. That was cool. And the puzzles were alright. Were pretty cool. They're getting harder, so that's fun. And yeah, I think this was a good bit of research today. And we also have the puzzles that we unlocked for the ranking. So, oh, that's a lot of them. Yeah, we can do a few, I think. Let's do it. It's 2 on a 1 on a 2 on a 2. That's a complete row. That's a 3. That is also a complete column. That is a 3. That's that. That is that. That is 2. That is a 4. I don't know if that's anything. That's definitely something. That's a 1. That has to be a 1. So this has to be the 2. That has to. Oh, that 2 there. That helps us with that. Yeah, that's something. That's something. That's a 2. That is a 7. That is part of the 3. That's a 3 there. That's a 1. That is a 4. Okay. Not all of them. That's a 3. That's a 3. That is a 4. That. What else do we have? Oh, that's a 3. That's complete. That's a 2. That's a 3. That's a 3. That's a 1. That's part of the 2. That's a 1. That's something. That's a 2. That's a 1. That's a 2. That's nothing. That is something, maybe? Oh, that's complete. That's a 2. That's complete. That's a 1. That's a 3. So that's something. That's not. That's something. There we go. That's a 3. And that's a. That's also complete. It's a spotlight. Oh, a stage light. Okay, cool. Yeah, let's do a couple more, I think. This is just for a wind down. I mean, I just there isn't really much to do with these puzzles, story-wise, right? I just like the cross. What can I say? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that's at least a 3. 4. Okay, that's a 6. That's a complete row again. That's part of the 4. That's a 1. That's a 2. That is a 1. 1, 1, 1. It's a bunch of 1s. It's a 2. That is a 4. That's a 1. Yeah, that is something. That's 18. That's a 1 and a 1 and a 9. That's a 1 and a 2. Something. That's a 2. That's a 4. So that's that. That's a 2 as well. So the 4 goes to there. That has to be a 4. Part of the 2. So that's the 2. So that's the 1. That's the 2. That's a 2. That's the 4. That's a 4. That's a 2. That's a 1 and a 2. That's a 6. That is a 3. Yeah, no worries. That is complete. That's a 3. That's a 5. That's a 2. That's a 2. That's a 6, I think. Yeah, that's a 1. That is complete. That is a 4. And what have we found? Soap dispenser. Hand wash. Yeah, same thing. Cool. Oh yeah, same thing. Okay, what do we have here? 1. Oh. I think this tile right here is the only one we can start with. That's interesting. That's very interesting. I like that a lot. Yeah, I think that's the only one. Okay. Let's see. That's a 2. Yeah, okay, so that's nothing, so that's a 4. Ooh, that doesn't help us a lot. No, that does, okay. 5, 6, 7, 8, that's a 1, that's a 4. That's 1. That's a 4, that's a 3. Okay, that's 4, that is 1 and 2, that is complete. That is a 4. That can be that's a 3, so that's complete. Has to be 2, that has to be 2. Oh, that's a 4. That's a 2, that's a 2. That is, whoops. What's going on? There you go, that's a 5. That's a 3. That's a 1, that's complete. That is a 3, that's a 3, that is a 3 as well. That is complete, that's a 5. This is a 3. That is part of 3. That's a 1. That's a 1. That is nothing. That's a 4 right there. That I forgot. This is an 8. That's a 2. This is empty. That's part of the 3. Oh, hold on. Oh, there you go. That's the one. That is empty. So that's a 1 and a 1. That's done. That is. So, that's a 1. That's 1 as well. That's nothing. That's nothing. So that's the 1. There we go. There we go. What is this? Cool hunter. Oh, a clothes sack. That's good. Yeah, let's keep going. This is fun. This is pretty fun. It's 3 and 3 and 2 and 3. Okay. 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 That's not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's not quite right. That's a 1. That's nothing. That's a 1. That is a 6. So it has to be here. I'm hearing cats outside. So I'm pretty sure there's gonna be some barking in it. In a couple of seconds, I can hear her going downstairs. There she is. Two. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. That's an empty column. That is a 5. Okay, there has to be a 3. So that's a 1, that's a 1, that's a 2, that's a 3, there goes a 5, that's a 1, that's a 2, so that's part of the 5, that's a 1, that's a 2, that's a 4, that's a 3, that's a 3 as well, that's nothing, that can't be anything, so that's the 3, that has to be a 2, so that's the 2 and the 1s of the. Okay, there you go. There you go. Let's go. There you go. There's a 1 and there's another one. There's another one there, and we have found. I don't know what that is. Gum. That doesn't look like gum. Oh, it's wrapped. Okay. Cool. What do we have here? I think, yeah, 1, 1, 1, 3, 2, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I had to. That's 6. That's 2, 1, 1. Okay, that's a 2, and that's the other 2. So that is done. That's a 2. 6, 2. Okay. That's a 4. That's a 9. That's a 1. That's a 2. So that's a 2. These dots, that's a 3, that has to be a 2. That's a 4, that's a 2. Okay, that has to be a 1, that has to be a 2, right? Yeah, that has to be a 1, I'm pretty sure. So it's this, yeah, oh, 4. Okay, that's 2 and a 1, that's a 1, that is a 1, and that is a 2, and that is a 2. That's a 2, okay, that's a 1. Oh, actually, that is a 7. Yep. That's a 3, that's a 4, that's a 2, that's, well, this is done as well. So this is a 1 and that is a 5. That is a 1, that's a, oh, this is done. That's a 2, 2, 2. This is part of the 2. Oh, actually, I don't know about that. Yeah, actually, it wasn't. No, yes. That's not a. That's a 2. That's nothing, so that's a 1, so that's nothing. That's a 2, that's nothing, that's a 3. And we have found champagne. Cool. Those are good. Ooh, okay. That's 11. This is 10. And this is also 11. And this is 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, that is 5, so that's not. Ooh. That's a 6, that's a 4. That is a 3, a 3, and a 4, 4, 5, 4. Yep, she's barking again at cats. Right. One, two. One. Pesky felines. Yep, he's doing a very good job. That's a 5. That's a 5 as well. That's a 3. That's a 2. This row is done. That's a 2. That's a 4. And this is a 5. That's a 4. That's a 4. That's a 2. That's a 5. That's a 5. That's a 6. That's a 5 as well. That's a 6. That's a 2. That is a 2. That is a 7. That's a 2. That's a 6. That's a 8. That's 11. That's a 3. This is a 3. And this is a 3. This is a 6. This is a 6 as well. What else do we have? That's a 3. Okay. This is a 6. This is a 3. This is a 5. So this is a 4. This is a 4. This has to be a 6 as well. That's a 1. That is 11. That is 10. This way. This way. Okay. That's a 1. This is a 3. This way. And 6. That is a 6 as well. That's a 3. That's 5. Yes, that's... There we go. It is something. It's a coat. It's a suit carrier. Ooh. Yeah. Okay, I think I'm gonna do these, like, the next 2 puzzles, and then I'm gonna leave it at that. Because, I mean, they're just puzzles. I love doing puzzles, of course, but I don't think I'm not gonna be learning anything from them. Oh, I just realized. When you solve all the puzzles, you can unlock this memory. Oh, I didn't realize. Okay, because I did solve all the puzzles from the first case. Then I saw that this was like the memory, and I didn't realize it was locked before. I just went and did the puzzles. And yeah, it's locked. Okay, okay. Interesting. Cool. Okay, okay. Yeah, okay, so I'm just gonna do these other 2 puzzles for now. I'm gonna do the other ones at some other point. Probably tomorrow. It's 12. That is a 5, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, there's a lot of them, which is good because I love the puzzles. Yeah, there aren't that many puzzles in the story part of the game. I thought there would be more. For a game that is like marketed as being solving mysteries using Picross, I thought there would be more Picross puzzles, right? 5. Oops, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The music is nice. I don't think I had commented on the music before, but at least this track, right? That's playing right now. I don't know if you can hear it. Because I have very sensitive ears, eardrums, I guess. So I like to, when I play games and all that, I play them like very low volume. So if you can't hear them, if you can hear the game, just let me know. Because it is very likely you just can't hear anything. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 2. That is 80. Okay, that's that's the 10, 4, 4, okay, 4. Done, 3, done. It's 10 and a 1. 5, 2. Oh, 7, okay. There we go. And in here, what do we have? There we go. What's this? Clutch bag. A clutch bag. Okay, cool. And this is all me for today. Let's see, what do we have here? 3, 1, 2. No, that's not enough. Oh, 6, 3, 1, 4. Oh, okay. In this house, we care about those with sensitive ears, so yeah, that's good to know. 3, 3, 2, 4. Okay, 1, 2. Okay, base could be either, so let's touch that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 3, 2. It has to be one of the two, right? Yes. Okay. 3, okay, 4. 6, 7, 8. There we go. That's 2, that's a 2. Okay. That's a 6, that's a 4. That's a 2. 1, 1, 2. This is nonsense. That these have to be here. There we go. It's 2. That's a 2. That's a 2. Okay. This is nothing. So 8. This is done. This is done. That's something there. There you go. That's done. That's a 3. So that's nothing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2, 3, 1. Okay. That's a 3. Oh, so that's complete. Okay. So it would seem 3, okay. That's nothing. So what do we have here as well? That's a 3. That's complete. That has to be the 2. So that's the 1. That could be anything. It has to be a 2. On the 1 and a 1. And oops, on the 1. On the 3. The 3. Okay, that's complete. Okay. That's a 2. That's a 5. There we go. What's this? An umbrella. Yeah, it looks like an umbrella. Okay. Yeah, that's a bunch of other puzzles that are gonna be harder than this than the one we just did. So yeah, I'm gonna leave this. I'm gonna leave it. I'm gonna leave that for today. I'm slurring my words. But yeah, it was fun. I mean, I just talked because what can I say? So yeah, we did learn a lot today. I think it was a very productive session today. Yeah. Well, there we have it, I think. I'm gonna be streaming tomorrow again, case 3. It seems like case 2 and case 1 were about as long. Were about the same length in time, I mean. So we're probably gonna be able to do case 3 tomorrow again. We're gonna be able to finish case 3 tomorrow. And then case 4 after that. And we'll see. We'll see what happens after that. I'm not planning on streaming more games after this, unless I find another Picross, but a game that has to do with Picross. That would be fun. But yeah, I just wanted to keep a record of me playing this game, because you know it is for research, and I have been learning important things to keep in mind. So yeah, it's been good. It's been a good game. It's been a good session, and thank you for keeping me company. So, but yeah, I think we're done for today. So yeah, bye.